Earlier this month, the House of Commons unanimously backed a motion to declare the deaths and disappearances of hundreds of Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirited people a Canada-wide emergency. It also pledged to fund a public alert system for use going forward in such cases. And for a growing number of advocates, there is a push to recognize that such terrible events have also claimed too many Indigenous men and boys. With us now for more, we welcome, in Thunder Bay, Ontario, Cora Maguire-Serrett, Chief Executive Officer of the Ontario Native Women's Association. In Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, Paulette Steeves, Canada Research Chair in Healing and Reconciliation at Algoma University. In Blind River, Ontario, Grand Council Chief of the Anishinaabe Nation, Reginald Niganabe. And in Oswegan, Ontario, near Brantford, Sandra Montour, Executive Director of the Ganok Wasra Family Assault Support Services. And we're very pleased to have all four of you on our program tonight to take a look at a hugely disturbing and important subject. And I'm going to start by just putting some facts out here for our viewers and listeners to consider. Here we go. Sheldon, put this graphic up if you would. We're going to take a look at Statistics Canada's latest numbers on the victimization of Indigenous people across the country. The data suggest that Indigenous people are twice as likely as their non-Indigenous counterparts to be the victims of violent crimes such as sexual assault or robbery. In 2020, police reported a total of 201 Indigenous homicide victims. The homicide rate involving an Indigenous victim reached its highest level since 2015, and the increase was mainly due to a higher number of murdered Indigenous men than in previous years. Let's do some more here. Despite a decline in the homicide rate among Indigenous women, the rate was still nearly twice that of non-Indigenous men and more than 5 times that of non-Indigenous women. 47% of Indigenous women aged 15 and older who were murdered between the years 2015 and 2020 were killed by an intimate partner. And murdered Indigenous women were twice as likely as Indigenous men to have been reported missing. All right, let's get into this. It's been 4 years since the federal government accepted the findings of the National Inquiry into Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women. How much progress has there been in terms of responding to the calls for justice issued in that final report? Let's go around on that. Cora, you want to get us started, please?
Yeah, sure, definitely. I think when we're looking at this, implementation has been slow. There's no doubt about that. When we're looking at the crisis that's happening out of Winnipeg and how there's Indigenous women in a landfill site because of the lack of response to their deaths, I think this is really showing that this is a systemic issue here in Canada, and we need immediate investments now. So when we're looking at, Leah Grisans and her call for action, this is another tool that we can use to address this violence. And because this violence is so complex, as you can see from some of the data, is not, Indigenous women are more likely to be murdered by, serial killers, by intimate partners, by families, by non-Indigenous people, by Indigenous. It's a very complex issue that we're facing. So we need immediate investments now into Indigenous women's safety.
Chief Niganabe, how do you see the progress as it has happened so far?
The progress is very slow moving. I mean, even right now, the 124 million that was announced in the federal budget for the missing and murdered Indigenous women, Two-Spirited plus. There's no date on when these will be, as far as I know, there's no date on when these funds will be distributed or how they'll be distributed or anything along these lines. Everything's just progressing very slowly, moving way too slow for what's taking place right now.
Paulette Steeves, what's your read on it?
Well, I agree with everyone. And, I would expect to see the homicide rate go down quite a bit if the National Action Plan had been implemented. But from what I've seen reading the 2022 report, there is no implementation plan. So these are great thoughts, they're great words. People have done a lot of work, but the federal government has not come up with an implementation plan to address violence. In the meantime, our people are dying, on a daily and weekly basis. This is far too slow. And I really agree with Leah Gantz. We definitely need a red dress system for Canada.
We're going to get to that red dress system in a little bit, but let's first get Sandra Montour on the record as to how she sees the progress, if any, made so far.
I think it's slow. I think I agree with everybody else. It's too slow. People our women, our families continue to be murdered at unacceptable rates. And I believe Canada is moving at a snail's pace. And this is a very serious problem. And I give a lot of credit to the families who continue to advocate for change. They continue to have that strong desire that they want to honor their lost family member by wanting to ensure that no other family goes through this trauma. I can't help but think of the resources and shelters that have been sent back to the federal government. That's completely unacceptable. The fact that they're sending money back to the federal government and taking it away from our shelters, especially because I'm thinking specifically of the northern communities, the northern remote communities who could benefit so much from having a shelter or a transitional house. And those women and those children have to leave their territory and go and move to access safety, to feel safe. It's just, we're not moving fast enough.
Paulette, let me get you to react to something that I mentioned in the introduction to the segment, the notion that the House of Commons unanimously, how often does that happen? They passed a motion in early May calling on the feds to declare the ongoing violence against missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, two-spirited people, quote, a national emergency. It hasn't happened yet. Give the federal government some advice on this. What should they do?
The federal government, they worked on this national action plan. There were 7 main goals. These were great goals. But what is that without implementation? And I'm very happy to see the MPs pushing for this, pushing for action to be taken. But if the federal government was serious about healing and reconciliation, about creating paths for healing, our MPs wouldn't have had to do this, right? The federal government is showing that they're not willing, and they really need to think about that.
Cora, can I get you to follow up by answering this aspect of the question? It would be one thing for the federal government to declare this situation a national emergency. What that would actually mean is another question. Do you think it would change anything if they were to do that?
I think every action is going to make change. When you're looking at, systems are failing to protect Indigenous women ultimately at the end of the day, and Indigenous women want action. What we also need to look at is a coordinated strategy of safety. So that's really what that national response needs to look like, is being able to coordinate Indigenous women's safety all across Canada. And when we're talking about violence against Indigenous women, we're not saying that, addressing violence against us is an end point, it's a beginning point. As we can see from the data that's happening with our brothers, violence against us continues to be perpetuated here. The violence is different, and the violence against Indigenous women is a systemic failure. And that's what we really have to start to address and unpack and invest into Indigenous women's safety, because any community that's safe for Indigenous women is going to be safe for anybody.
I mean, Grand Council Chief, that's really the question. If the government, in its wisdom, did decide to sign on to this unanimous resolution of the House of Commons and declare a national emergency, how much confidence do you have that it would actually lead to concrete action that you want to see?
As was stated before, any action is a lot more than what's going on and what's happening right now. Any of it would be appreciated. Of course, we'd have to bring in provinces and all of the Indigenous organizations that are out here to help coordinate. But there are plenty of ideas, plenty of solutions within the Anishinaabe Nation, and I'm sure within several of these organizations that are represented here today. And then I imagine there's many more countrywide. So any movement would be great movement, and a lot of work could get done.
Okay. Sandra, you referenced the red dress alert earlier, and I think for people who don't know what that is, you should tell us, number one, what it is, and number two, whether you think it would be the right way to go here.
Well, I imagine Cora could probably speak on that a little bit better than I, but I've actually had more questions when it comes to You know, the things that I've been reading about the red dress alert, certainly some of the, I would like to think that it would be somewhat similar to the Amber Alert system. However, we'd have to work out some serious jurisdictional issues between federal and provincial issues, because our women, we go from, you know, on reserve into the cities, into, you know, rural, remote. We're all over the place, all over Turtle Island. So we would definitely need some sort of coordinated system. Do I believe that it would be helpful? I would hope so. It's something. I do need to say here that I do think that Canada has a responsibility to make amends for some of our past injustices, so for all of our past injustices. You know, our people are still dealing with, I mean, those statistics that you cited at the beginning, our people are still dealing with the effects of colonization, oppression, our women, our children, and our men. I'm glad to hear that you're talking about our men, because it's our families all around that have been impacted tremendously. And it comes from the past injustices of our people.
Okay, Cora, let's pass the microphone to you and tell us how do you think a potential red dress alert system could work?
Yeah, I think it's like the biggest piece is recognizing that violence doesn't know jurisdictional bounds, just like Sandy was speaking to, that, you know, we as Indigenous people, we know some of us live in our own home communities, we live in urban centers, rural, and violence doesn't know those jurisdictional bounds. And so looking at a coordinated alert system on the cell phones, just as Sandy spoke to about having, when the child goes missing, being able to have that system there, but it can also collect the data. And I know you were able to reference some really good data earlier. We still don't have that comprehensive review of, you know, how many missing persons cases there is historically and continuing, because the outcomes are different. And that's really what we're seeing, that, you know, when a Indigenous woman or a girl goes missing, there's a connection to potential human trafficking, for instance, and the outcomes are not working well. Like when you're looking at the domestic violence, family violence that's happening, why that data is key is because we can really do outcomes for prevention there. Because when there's domestic violence happening or family violence, you know, we need to have a safety plan. We need shelters for women in order to prevent these deaths, because we've seen how investments into non-Indigenous women and their systems have decreased the violence against them. And that's why we need to see investments into Indigenous women.
Grand Council Chief, I want to follow up with you on, well, let me put it this way. It is obviously understandable that much of the focus has been on murdered or missing women and girls, Indigenous women and girls, because the numbers are so disproportionate to their share of the population. But there has been a growing recognition as well, as we mentioned in the opening, that murdered and missing Indigenous men and boys is an issue as well, and their numbers are disproportionate to their percentage of the population. Do you think they have been lost in the shuffle as we try to understand this phenomenon better?
I don't think so. I think we've always been aware of it, and we're been definitely paying attention to it. I just don't think it's perhaps it's not talked about as much. But we do recognize that Indigenous people in general are being missing and murdered. So it's I mean, one for all of us. It impacts all of us, irregardless of if it's men, women, or children, or elders. It impacts the community in a deep and profound way. But like you said, the numbers are high for missing and murdered Indigenous women, so therefore that's the focus for us right now.
Right. Paulette, how about you on that issue of murdered and missing Indigenous men and boys, which has got less attention? Should it have more?
Yes, it should have more. And really what the government and these agencies should be really paying attention to is how high the statistics are and the difference from the general population. And, you know, it's very diverse, the communities that Indigenous people live in now, and we need the services and the action in all of these communities.
All right. Cora, can I get you to speak to the issue of whether or not you think, I mean, we had a very thorough and long investigation into murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls. Do we need a separate inquiry into murdered or missing Indigenous men and boys? What's your view on that?
I think what we need is action. And we can have inquiry after inquiry. We've had so many different reports, so much research done, and we need to build on those recommendations. So when you're looking at, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, you're looking at, the RCAP, like there's so many different reports that have been done for generations and so many actions that haven't been acted upon. At the end of the day, that's what we need is we need action now. And many of the recommendations within the National Inquiry will help support healing with our men as well and looking at addressing the violence. Because really what we're talking about is systemic racism and discrimination here in Canada. And systems are failing Indigenous people at the end of the day. And that's the difficult part about this. A lot of people want to think that it's kind of one bad person doing one bad thing to one Indigenous person, but ultimately it's systemic failure when you really look at the stories, when you're looking at families and what they've said and how systems have failed everywhere from the healthcare system to the justice system. There's no justice in the justice system when it comes to Indigenous people. And so ultimately what we're looking for is long-term sustainable investments into our communities, into our healing, and into our safety.
Chief Niganabe, I should give you a chance to comment on that as well. Do you think we need a separate inquiry for murdered and missing Indigenous men and boys?
No, she said it perfectly and eloquently. We need action, not more inquiries.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, this may be obvious on the face of it, but I still think it's worth exploring here. Sandra Montour, can you talk to us about the differences between how Indigenous men and women experience violence in this country today?
Well, we have a shelter here at Six Nations, Ganokwasha Family Self-Support Services, and we do provide services, and we always have to our men in our community. What we see here is, especially during the pandemic, we've seen an increase in violence amongst our women. The violence is more severe. It's more life-threatening. The violence was always severe, but it's even more severe, and it is more life-threatening since the pandemic, and that's what we've seen as a result of the pandemic. We also see too that the violence is more, Cora said it, there's domestic violence, relationship violence, whereas with the men, what we see here is the violence is more about family violence. Perhaps it's a family member or a community member against a male in the community. So that's how we see it. We do see a difference in the violence, but certainly the outcome is the same. There's been such tragic death in our community, and we've seen it across the board. And you cited those statistics at the beginning. So, our men are dying as well. And I'd like to answer that too regarding I agree with Cora and with others that we need action. We need for the government to listen to the communities. We know what we need, rather than wasting the money to do another huge inquiry. We need, ask the community what we need, ask the communities how we can help, and put those resources to our communities, because we know what we need. We know how to make change in our communities. And I can't help but think of the Family Wellbeing Program, Indigenous Healing and Wellness Strategies. We have examples that have worked really well for Indigenous people.
Paulette, do you think that the communities are not being adequately consulted by the federal government? They have not been asked what they want?
Well, I think that the communities have been included in discussions, but that doesn't account for anything if there is no action. What we really need is action. And, the federal government and people also need to realize that, yes, there is a enormous rate of violence against Indigenous men and women. And it's the families and the children now we also need to talk about. How do we deal with and care for children that have suffered the loss, of a family member to violence? There is no treatment center for Indigenous people for PSDT, for healing and recovering from historical and ongoing colonization. This violence is still ongoing. It's ongoing in so many areas. And, in the National Action Plan, one of the things they really highlight is education for the general population, trauma-informed courses and classes. There's a few out there. They're not accessible to people. And when you go in, my experience is when you go in to teach these classes to, say, a police force, you face pushback in your own community. So there's violence in so many different areas, but one of my concerns has been for the lack of care, the lack of facilities for Indigenous men and women, and specifically for Indigenous children and families dealing with trauma. There just are no facilities.
Chief Niganabe, I'd like to circle back to a comment that Sandra made about the pandemic making things worse. And maybe you could report to us on how things were with your Anishinaabe Nation. Did the pandemic have a significant deleterious effect on the amount of violence in your community, for example?
It did have a greater impact, and we're seeing effects of that now. We have gang violence and other things that are taking place within our communities to some small degree, and it could be scattered out to different communities. We do represent 39 communities, so it's different in everywhere. But going back to kind of what was mentioned earlier about asking the First Nations, or the First Nations kind of saying what they need, a lot of our First Nations have been saying they need greater police, not just presence, but also respect for their First Nation laws, and that's not happening right now. It's been an ongoing conversation with both the federal and provincial governments for years now at this time, and no action has been taken on that. So First Nations aren't in control of, their First Nations at all in any regard, especially in law enforcement. So there's a problem and a gap right there that's identified easily.
Let me follow up with you and just make sure I understand what you're saying. Are you saying you would want to see a greater RCMP police presence in your communities, or a greater respect by RCMP of your police services?
There's a gap in police services for First Nations. We do have like Anishinaabe police services, or some of our other First Nations have agreements with the OPP or anything like that. We don't have RCMP here in Ontario, so that's not part of the problem. But the part of the problem is that whether it be OPP or our own Anishinaabe police services, there's a gap in the funding. Both Ontario and Canada can agree to a set amount on who will pay. And then First Nation might enact laws that they would like to see happen here on their First Nations, but they're not allowed to. It won't be recognized by the Ontario courts. So there's that gap in policing and law enforcement and prosecution.
Gotcha. Cora, I should give you a chance to speak to the issue of how the pandemic has either changed and or made things worse as it relates to this subject today. What's your experience with that?
Oh, it's just been like, a crisis on top of a crisis, compounding traumas that have happened. And, even though we're an association, we also deliver a lot of frontline services all across Ontario. And we had seen that it wasn't safe to be home for many people. And the level of increased racism and discrimination happened, the level of violence. And we also have to look at the pandemic has created the mental health and addiction crisis that we're seeing. We're seeing far too many parents having to bury their children, and we're losing so many, of our community members to this mental health and addiction crisis. And because like Paulette, who had spoken to, there is no healing services, no treatment, and it's so true, because what we're seeing on the ground right now, post-pandemic, is that if you want to access the treatment services, it's going to take you 1 to 2 years to be on a wait list. And if you can wait 1 to 2 years, sorry, you don't need treatment. So what's happening in between is the gap in the justice system that our Grand Chief was just speaking about, on how, what's happening is while people are waiting for treatment, they're either ending up being killed, murdered, or ending up in the justice system. And because there is no response that's preventative, and there is no capital investment. So, largely what we're seeing is we need to build safe spaces for our own healing, built by Indigenous people for Indigenous people. And so we need to be able to build these capital projects, and yet there is no capital funding available to provide these healing spaces, these healing services. And that's something that we need to see kind of post-residential school, post-colonization, is investments into our communities. And, there has been no comprehensive healing across all of our communities, from our First Nations to our urban Indigenous, First Nation, Métis, and Inuit. And so we really do need to see investments into our healing designed, developed by us, for us.
And Chief Niganabe, when cases end up in the court system of Canada, do you think, they talk about clearance rates, the ability of law enforcement, the ability of the justice system to get justice and clear cases in an expeditious fashion. Is that happening adequately in your community?
No, not at this time. I don't feel it is. It's the system in general, the way it is set up. Not a lot of it works very well for First Nations. And I'd like to say before anybody says, well, just demanding more money isn't the proper way. It would help only because we've been socially and economically stymied for so many years now. We're just trying to catch up.
Well, let's go around our virtual table here and just get each of you to put an idea forward. You've all called for the federal government to take more action. You've all said we don't need more studies, we need more action. So let's get some ideas going forward here on one thing. Each of you give me one thing that the federal government could do tomorrow to make some progress on these issues. Sandra, you want to start us off?
Well, I always think that funding, providing funding for sustainable funding, not these project fundings. They can perhaps all these projects that they're offering, they can look at making them more long-term, evergreen, sustainable, rather than project funded. That our people don't like that when, they just get started in something for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and it's starting to, they start to reap the benefits of the project, and then it's over. And that causes more trauma and more mistrust than anything. So, and that's very frustrating. So that's really what I would like to see for our First Nations is long-term sustainable funding.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Paulette Steeves, how about you?
Yeah, I think the federal government needs to, have more discussions and think about what is the half-life of intergenerational trauma, and how can we shorten that, in part by providing centers for healing and care for people and communities affected by the trauma of ongoing and historical colonization. So try to get into a healing center today. I've tried to help a number of Indigenous people that have suffered from sexual abuse and violence and have been diagnosed with PTSD. There is no treatment center they can get into. There's a private one. If you have $10,000, you can get maybe a week or two there. And, for Indigenous people, those kinds of services do not exist. So I'd like to see the federal government fund spaces in existing facilities for healing, specifically for Indigenous people, while they work to create with communities the healing centers that we need.
Gotcha. That's a good concrete suggestion. Okay. Cora McGuire-Surrett, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far, and looking at that community development approach to the investments, particularly around, if you want to look at what is one thing that we can do today to help support our grandchildren of tomorrow, is those investments into those safe, supportive healing spaces in community. And we can't have that if we don't have access to capital, because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to take us as Indigenous people to do a lot of the heavy lifting and a lot of the heavy work. And Indigenous women need access to that safe space. And, that means investments into capital. And we should have safe spaces in every single one of our communities all across Canada.
Chief Niganabe, give the last word to you on this.
Sure. Other than everything that was already said, which is absolutely much needed. Right now you could even do the red dress alert system. We had the anti-network helpline here in Ontario too at one point. A lot of this helps, connect people with the supports they need. And it's usually staffed by Indigenous women or Two-Spirit LGBTQ plus people, which have the ability to, connect with the individuals. But also too, start implementing any of the thousands of recommendations that you have in any of the reports that you have that have been done on Indigenous people since the start of everything.
You know, the roadmap is there, Grand Council Chief. It does make you wonder why it's taken so long to implement. What do you come back with when you think about that?
The desire not to give up the colonial structure or power.
So that
would mean dismantling a lot.
That might be required at the top of the list. I want to thank the four of you for joining us on the agenda tonight. Cora McGuire-Surrett, Paulette Steeves, Reginald Niganabe, Grand Council Chief of the Anishinaabe Nation, Sandra Montour. It's really good of you to share your views with us here on TVO, and we appreciate your time very much. Be well, you four.
Miigwech.
Steve.
Miigwech.
Bamapi.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.